Hello, you. It's me. And I just wanted to speak on Ryan for a minute because he is a bit of a dumbass, in my opinion. Um, and I'll explain to you why I think that. First of all, when it comes to his second firing from a teaching job, I had a very close relative who was a substitute teacher and then later a regular teacher for adult education. The reason why they took the adult education job is because they got fired from working for the schools for elementary schools. Why did they get fired? Was it a tardy? No. Was it a write-up? Kinda. Not because they argued with anybody, but this person, my relative, said the word ass in front of, it was either third graders, I think it was third graders, maybe fifth graders, I'm not sure. But all they did was say ass, and they got fired. I don't know. I mean, not all school systems work the same, but they can be extremely strict. And so I think there's something there that maybe Ryan didn't talk about. Now, could it be just because of all the stuff that's been going on online? Sure, I think it could. I think that could definitely help. But being tardy twice is not good. And although he claims that he had reason, etc., and maybe he did, and he said that he got written up because he complained. It could be. It seems less likely. But that's enough. That's 3 strikes right there, my dude. You know, regardless of who you married, although you married horribly. But he's still, what bothers me is I'm not surprised that he is delusional about why his contract was not renewed. I feel like he is extremely delusional, and the reason being is something else he said on his live, which was that Gypsy called him in July when I believe her birthday's in July, and crying, saying she had a horrible birthday, and if she wasn't pregnant, she would run right back to Ryan. And Ryan believed this. And he says, I'm telling the truth. I got the text messages or whatever he said. I definitely think that Gypsy would say something like that. Absolutely. Because she was doing everything she could to keep Ryan on that string. What baffles me is that to this day, Ryan thinks that she would have actually considered that. When is his delusion gonna run out? She never loved Ryan. She never wanted Ryan. He was a constant for her that she could go back to, sure, her comfort, quote unquote. But she didn't want Ryan. If she wanted Ryan, then she would have stayed with Ryan. And he still seems to think that she still loves him. She never loved him. People with and this is all going by my thoughts, my opinions, not facts. People that, in my opinion, have the kind of brain dysfunction that Gypsy has, most likely due to her microdeletion issue, they don't feel like that. They don't really feel much of anything. They feel pleasure for themselves and happiness for themselves, but they don't feel anything for other people. Again, my thoughts, not facts. But we have seen how Gypsy has treated Ryan, and he still thinks that she loved him? That's what I don't understand. Even if it were true that Christy got Ken back into the picture intentionally, to get Gypsy to see him and then for Gypsy to go with him, I honestly think Christy did have a part in that. But Gypsy never stopped talking to Ken. She was still talking to him. So even with Christy saying, hey, Ken's asking about you, Gypsy could have just said, yeah, fuck him. We were going to get married. He left. He's been gone for 5 years or whatever it was. Why would I want to get back together with him when I have Ryan? But Gypsy didn't say that, did she? She likes to keep as many people at play as possible. And Ryan is still falling for it. I would think at this point in time, Gypsy slept with him and then left without a word. Where does that make sense? She wanted to get off one more time and then she went to Ken. Ryan doesn't seem to understand that. She left because she wanted to leave, because Ken to her was a better fit. Ken to her was the Chad, and Ryan was just the gullible, nice guy that she could use. And Ken still doesn't see that? He still doesn't see that. I am so perplexed. I am so confused. How he still thinks that she loved him at some point. Or that she still does. Ryan, she doesn't. She really doesn't. So, with him being confused as to why he got not fired, but not renewed, I guess. Fired is the same thing. It could just all be him. The things that he did, he had 3 strikes against him. It could have been because he married a murderer, even though they're divorced now. I think that's why he got fired the first time, because he was in a Catholic school, and there's like moral clauses that they have to follow, and he didn't, because he married somebody who murdered their mother. But even if it was because of Gypsy, he still did things wrong. He wasn't the perfect employee. And you don't... First of all, him saying that he didn't get any time off while all the other teachers did, I don't believe it. And if it's true, he would have an excellent case that he should have documentation for and could take them to court and sue them. Real easy. Because that's against the law. You can't do that. But I haven't seen him do that or even talk about that. He says he's not going to do anything. He's just going to let it lie. Well, then you know you're at fault. He knows that something he did or something Gypsy did, or both, could be both, lots of strikes against the guy, got him fired. He says the school is covering their own ass. Oops, I guess I can't teach in elementary schools. And maybe that's true, maybe that's not. Maybe he was working for a system that worked against him. But why didn't they fire him before now? I just think he's full of shit. Literally, my relative got fired for saying ass. Just that one word. Banned from teaching elementary, junior high, and high school. Banned. Which is why they finally went to adult... It's like preparing adults for their GED. That's what they went into. And they were adults. So I guess saying the word ass wouldn't be as bad. I don't know. But yeah, school systems can be very sensitive to stuff like this. Which is why I'm always shocked when I hear about school systems not being this sensitive to a lot of the ridiculous stuff like LGBT books that talk about how to perform sex acts. That should not be in the school system at all. I don't know why they're not as strict on those things. But yeah, I just wanted to come and talk about that a little bit, because I've always been kind of on the fence with Ryan, and I've always kind of felt bad for him because he just seemed very gullible, and Gypsy took advantage of that, and she did. But how gullible is the guy gonna be? Is he just gonna stay that gullible? How does he think she has any feelings for him ever, let alone now? You know, she might have called you. She might text you. She might say all sorts of things. Why in the heck would you believe a thing she says? Do you not get it? I mean, he hates Ken. Ken had nothing to do with anything. Ken was just there. Gypsy could have ignored him, but she didn't. And Ryan doesn't seem to acknowledge that. Christy could have taken Gypsy away and said, no, you can't go back to Ryan. And guess what Gypsy could have done? She could have called the police. Said, I have been kidnapped. But Gypsy didn't do that. Gypsy stayed with Christy and went to Ken. And had a baby with him. She got pregnant, like what, a month after she left Ryan? And he still thinks that she has feelings for him? I don't get him. I really don't. It's hard to feel sorry for him when he acts completely clueless. Maybe he is clueless. In which case, maybe it's better he doesn't teach children that already have disabilities and are... They can be coerced, they can be harmed, and they wouldn't even understand it. You know, kind of like what happened with Nick. And I find it very disturbing. I find it very disturbing that Ryan is so blind, or pretending to be. I wouldn't be surprised if her and Christy planned out this whole thing way before she even got out of prison. Now, I know that there have been a lot of documents coming out. There was a very interesting discussion between Christy and Fancy. I really didn't know that Fancy worked with the Blanchards for like 3 years. But in the back and forth that I saw on Trixie Lane, thank you Trixie Lane for that, yeah, Gypsy had a bigger part to play in making sure that Gypsy got her time to stand, quote unquote. In other words, all the deals, all the TV shows, all the movies, all that stuff. Christy had a big hand in making sure those things fell into place. And there have also been a lot of emails that have been released between Gypsy and her family, Christy and Rod. I tried to listen to those. I fell asleep pretty quickly. So I will have to try and listen to them again. But apparently, Rod was talking very inappropriately, allegedly, to Gypsy. And it makes a little more sense why Gypsy would, quote unquote, accidentally send her father nudes. So things are starting to come together, you know, with all these things that are coming out. It's fascinating, and it's really sick and dark in a really bad way. And somebody had mentioned that maybe that's why Dee Dee wanted to move away from Rod and Christy. That could be. That's an interesting theory. It's just a theory. It's not a fact. You know, I always like to be very straightforward with what is a fact, what is evidenced, and what is just a theory or rumored. You know, we have to make sure to split those lines until we know for certain. And I don't know that for certain. This is just what I have heard. But that could possibly lead to some other really sick, demented things. And although that would make Gypsy a victim, but I mean, Gypsy's just as sick. Although what is a fact is that Gypsy was the one who said she wanted her and Nick's 13-year-old child to be taken by Nick on her 13th birthday. And it makes me wonder where she got that idea. Again, speculation. But if she was speaking so much to her father about personal things, private things, like making fun of Christy, allegedly, telling Gypsy about some of his, exploits, in other words, allegedly other women, that could lead to a very disturbing path. So it's something to think about. I will definitely try and listen more to the emails that went back and forth between Gypsy, her father, and Christy. It's just hard because it's a lot of information and a lot of it is just so boring. It's so hard to sift through. Same with watching Ryan's live where he was spilling the tea. I mean, maybe 5 minutes of information in however long that horrible, horrible thing was. He just, man, that guy, it's weird because you want to think of him as a humble dude who maybe is just not on the ball with things. But when he says things like, well, he's handsome, he knows he's handsome, it just gives me the ick. He gives me the ick. And his unwillingness to understand Gypsy and his unwillingness to understand why he's not teaching right now. I believe it was more likely him than anything else. But even so, being associated with Gypsy, I'm sure would not bring about positiveness in his school, especially when he's working with disabled children. So, yeah, he should have known that was coming. Anyway, thank you for listening. I will do my best to keep up to date with all the stuff that's happening and tell you about it in a easier, more manageable way. I mean, 2.5 or so hours of reading out emails, that was hard for me to try to listen to. I'm still going to do it, and I'm going to write notes, do my best, do my due diligence. I'm going to try, but oh my God, it's so much. And that's only the beginning. Apparently they read out Into the Weeds. They read out, I think, 200 emails, and there was like 2,000. So this is just like the tip of the iceberg. But I do think it's important to understand how these people were thinking. It helps you to understand more about how Christy and Rod and Gypsy are very much alike. I'm not sure how much alike, but alike in the way of their thinking, a way of their scamming, a way of their, just digging to get as much money as they can. So I do think it's important. It's just a matter of one, time, and two, being able to stay awake. But I'm going to try, because I think that there is some things in there that are of importance, that can help us understand better these degenerate people, in my opinion, my thoughts. They're all degenerates. Gypsy does not come from good stock. That's in my opinion. And they all seem to be all the same kind of grifting, worthless, icky individuals, in my opinion. So I will do that. But thank you again for listening. I appreciate you being here. It's awesome. And that's all I got to say.